Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Tuesday, the 22nd of July. That makes this the news for Monday, July 21st, day 1244 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. Although we are not under an air alert tonight. Right now, we are not under an air alarm, so that's good news. Hey, PH. See the peeps are coming in? Hey, Chef Deb. How you doing? Hey, Dawn. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Richard Prexis. There's Anthony Tommy Tom. Hey, Jackie. Nicola Jones. Hey, Carl. How you doing? Hey, G2. Derek, hello. Good morning. From way down under. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Morn. Hey, Mad Mike. How's everybody doing tonight? So for the early birds, the people who are here right on time, well, actually, I'm a little late. I apologize. But for you guys, hey, Bip. Hey, Nikki. Hey, June. Hey, everybody. There's June. Say hello to June. Everybody congratulate June. June just became a member of the Patreon at the Sea Babies level. Thank you, June. You are the best. Hey, Subway Green. Hey, Olympios. Win for the June. It's a big deal to me, I'll tell you. Those Sea Babies members, one of the Patreon benefits for the Sea Babies is I give them, I give them a personal thank you and video sponsorship every month to show my appreciation. Because really, guys, I mean, without the Patreon, I could not keep doing this. And speaking of the Patreon and fans of this channel, there's Scully. Hey, Scully. Again, from the southern hemisphere, where it's winter right now, if you can call that winter. But Scully is the sponsor of tonight's live. So everybody thank Scully and Mulder. We sure appreciate it. That's for sure. Hey, Lars. Hey, Bjorn. So Scully's the sponsor of tonight's live. So for you guys that are here on time, breaking news, this is happening right now. And so details are very thin on the ground. But apparently, the Ukrainians have launched their drone strike against Russia for this evening. And the Milarovo Air Base in Rostov-on-Don is under attack. Now, this is really critical. And one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is the attack last night on a railway hub inside of Rostov. Now, Rostov is just right. There's Mariupol and then there's Rostov. It's right over the border from Ukraine. It is the headquarters of Russia's southern military district. Right, so they're responsible for all of the military activity in Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea. Additionally, it is the supply hub. Literally, anything headed to the front lines, anything headed to the temporarily occupied territories, goes through Rostov. Anything headed to Crimea goes through Rostov, either because it's going to go over the land bridge right through the temporarily occupied territories down to Crimea, or it's going to take rail further south and then cross the Crimean Bridge. Now, here's the thing. The Crimean Bridge has been hit on at least 3 occasions by Ukrainian missiles and 1,000 pounds of explosives. I'm sorry, 1,000 kilograms. A ton of explosives, right? An American ton of explosives. At the base of one of the pillars of the railroad lines, because the Crimean Bridge is really two bridges next to each other, right? There's the car bridge, and then there's the rail bridge, and then they share some common base supports. Now, dig this. For a while, after that explosion at the pillar base of the rail bridge, there was no rail traffic for a while. It appears that some rail traffic is on again. Only it looks like what they're doing is they're doing the same thing now with the rail bridge that they have been doing with the road bridge. There's one train track open. Trains go across it one way, then they come back across it the other way. And I will bet you dollars to donuts that the one that's open is the one that's not on the pillar that had the 1,000 pounds of explosives or 2,000 pounds of explosives go off underneath it. Now, can you imagine being a Russian and first of all wanting to go to Crimea for vacation because it's your summer holidays and you go to the beach in Crimea every year? Like, that's what you do. You have your summer house there or your timeshare or the little inn that you like to stay at with your family every year. So you're going to Crimea, right? Says on the TV that the beaches in Crimea are open and everything's great. So why wouldn't you go? So just imagine Sunday, right? You're on a train, you're headed to Crimea, everything's looking good. And then the railway hub in the Rostov region that takes your train to Crimea comes under drone attack and burns to the ground. Because that's what happened yesterday. That's exactly what happened yesterday inside of the Rostov region. Now, this critical rail hub is the last rail hub that services Crimea. And I want to talk about that for a second. Well, let's talk about what happened with the railroad infrastructure first, because I think that this is important. So the last remaining artery to Crimea, and it is important to remember how dependent the Russians are on railroads. 70% of the men and materials that go to the front get there on a train. 70%. And so there is this deep dependency on rail for the Russian military. The last remaining artery to Crimea has been blown up. This was a strike on railroad infrastructure in Rostov, just to the northeast of Rostov-on-Don. A critical supply hub was hit. There are reports that 130 trains were delayed as many as 15 hours. So just imagine, you're out on the front line somewhere. There is a train coming with the ammunition that you need. It is delayed 15 hours. What kind of a position is that going to put you in? And right now, the effects of these delays will be being felt up and down the line. Not only were 130 transport trains full of military goods delayed by as many as 15 hours, but 26 passenger trains suffered delays up to 4.5 hours, including those trains to Crimea. Passenger trains to Crimea. According to the North Caucasus Railway, they said that the station at Kamenolony, Nilonya, just northeast of Rostov-on-Don, burned, and a special fire train came to try to control the blaze, but not before the roof collapsed, and the building is considered to be a loss. Dig this. You will never believe what Russian authorities are saying happened. It's not, right? It's not that there was a successful Ukrainian strike on the rail hub. No, that's not what happened. According to Russian media, this was a friendly drone incident. Now, Crimea River, Paul, right? Crimea River. Now, dig it. We've heard of friendly fire, right? We've heard of enemy drones. Apparently, what the Russian media wants their people to believe is not that Ukrainian drones successfully destroyed this last critical rail hub to Crimea. No. The Russian media would rather have you believe that their own incompetent drone operators blew up their own railway hub. Hey, Tim, how you doing, buddy? I'm sorry we couldn't get together today. Hey, everybody. Say hi to my buddy Tim. He's in the International Legion here, and he's headed out east tomorrow morning, I think. And unfortunately, we couldn't get together today. I had a pretty busy day, but I hope you're doing all right, Tim. Ready to move to Donetsk, baby. There, the peeps are saying hello. Russia would rather look incompetent than look vulnerable. Now, see, that's one of the reasons everybody here ought to follow Nightshade. That is put so beautifully, so succinctly, and so correctly. Russia would rather look incompetent than look vulnerable. And they are looking awfully vulnerable right now. Hey, Maria. Hey, Alice. Okay. So that was the strike on the railroad infrastructure in Rostov. But that was hardly the only strike last night. Now, we know, right, everybody probably knows that last night was a loud night here in Kyiv and across Ukraine. We saw the Russians send 426 drones and 24 missiles, including 5 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. Now, dig this. Of the 426 drones sent, 403, 95% interception rate, were taken out by the Ukrainians. Now that means 23 drones hit their targets, which they did. 2 people were killed last night in last night's attacks. Another 15 were wounded. And of course, there was damage to Ukrainian infrastructure. A couple fires around Kyiv, but not Kyiv on fire, like we have seen in some of these scaled drone and missile attacks. My favorite part of last night's attack by the Russians, of the 24 missiles, including 5 unshoot-downable, according to the Russian MOD, hypersonic missiles, 24 missiles were shot down. 100% interception rate on the missiles last night. Thank God. Thank God. Personally, I was up from like about 3 o'clock. It really got loud about 3 o'clock. And I was up from about 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock this morning. Tough morning. Hey, Tim. Hey, Robbo. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Designology. The Ukrainians do learn and adapt quickly. Now, over the weekend, more than 1,000 flights were delayed or canceled as all major Moscow airports were forced into extensive operational pauses under the threat of drone attack. Thanks, Alice. The Russian MOD claimed that it shot down 67 drones over Moscow alone this weekend, with as many as 230 Ukrainian drones fired at the territory of the Russian Federation over the weekend. This means that since May 1st, all airports in Moscow have been shuttered on account of Ukrainian drone activity for a minimum of 24 hours to a maximum of 60 hours at Domodedovo, the 3rd largest airport in Russia. But it's located right next to a military industrial zone, right? There's a lot of juicy targets right near that airport. It's worth mentioning, too, that that airport was recently nationalized It was upgraded back in 2010, 2015, that 5-year period, with about $2 billion in investment from foreign countries like the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and a couple of others were involved in that upgrade of the airport. And they retained an ownership of it. Not anymore. Russia has seized that airport from their allies in the world and nationalized it, leaving them with nothing. Nothing for their $2 billion investment. I think maybe I'm wrong about it. It might have been 20 billion. I'm not sure. But it was a lot of fucking money to turn Domodedovo into the third largest, most modern airport in all of Russia. And it has been closed 60 hours because of drone attacks since May 1st. It's going on 3 days. That means that 200,000 flyers, individual people flying, or 1 in 10 passengers since May 1st, have been affected by a flight delay or cancellation because of Ukrainian drone strikes on Moscow. So all these people who say, oh, you should strike Moscow, you should strike Moscow, you should strike Moscow, you're not fucking paying attention, because the Ukrainians regularly strike Moscow. Anyone investing in Russia deserves to lose their money. I couldn't agree more, Seawolf. I couldn't agree more. Now, Pistorius today said that Ukraine will shortly be receiving 5 Patriot missile batteries. And we hope the missiles to go with them. He didn't mention the missiles. He was a little bit vague, honestly. It was not entirely clear what was going on. What is the sourcing? What is the sourcing? Does this include the one from Norway? Does this include the 2 to Switzerland that the Swiss are going to wait to take delivery of and instead send the 2 that were built for them to Ukraine? We don't really know where these 5 Patriot batteries are coming from. It could be 2 from Germany, 2 from the Swiss, and 1 from Norway. Far short of the 17 that Donald Trump lied about, right? Let's just be honest. There is no country in the world with 17 extra Patriot batteries that it's willing to send to Ukraine. That is not a thing. There are only 2 countries in the world that even have 17 Patriot batteries. The United States and Egypt. And Egypt is not giving up what they have. It does not see. The Germans had 12 Patriot batteries, but they leased 2 to Poland. They sent 3 to Ukraine, and they have 1 currently being serviced back in the United States. That leaves them with 6, which is the minimum number under their NATO commitments that they need to maintain for themselves. So where the fuck are they getting 5 Patriot batteries? We don't know, Steve. We don't know what happened to those 8 Patriot batteries from Israel, right? Like, we just don't know. We have the Israeli ambassador to Ukraine saying, oh, it's a shame we never got credit for that. And immediately the defense minister of Israel saying we never sent Patriot batteries to Ukraine. So I would love to know. I would love to know where those Patriot batteries are and when they're coming. Now, somebody just mentioned the Australian Abrams. And I have that here someplace. Where? I know I wrote that down, didn't I? Oh, here we go. This is according to Gordon Arthur. Pardon me. Why is that so hard to say? Never trust a person with 2 first names. Gordon Arthur, writing, hey, Nana Pam, writing for Defense News, said that the first batch of Australian Abrams M1A1s are in Ukraine. Now, this is he's citing a source in the Australian Department of Defense who said on July 19th that Ukraine had taken delivery of the majority of the 49 tanks pledged following servicing in Poland after that long sail from way down under all the way up to Poland. And then we believe that the tanks were offloaded in Poland, sent to a NATO servicing center where they received some servicing before being put on trains to Ukraine, where they are now. Now, what is the majority of the tanks? What does that mean? Well, they pledged 49, so that means at least 25 are here. 25 would be a majority in that case, right? So the Australian tanks are here. The trolls are in the comments of that video saying that it doesn't matter, that the age of tanks is over, that it's all about drone warfare, that the Abrams don't make any difference. I beg to differ. The video that I have seen demonstrates that Ukrainian soldiery who are inside Abrams live. They survive when their counterparts do not. So that to me is a win as far as I'm concerned. 49 more Abrams at a time when Russia is running out of tanks. You know, just the other day, we had 0 tank losses for the day. Why? Ukraine suddenly can't hit tanks? No. They don't have them. The Ukrainians have destroyed over 11,000 Russian tanks. That's as many tanks as the USSR lost in World War fucking II. 11,000 tanks. They don't have them. They are no longer a critical component. Large armored column assaults just don't happen anymore. Just don't happen anymore. Very capable tanks like the Challengers. Kudos to the UK for sending tanks before America. You got us there, pal. So I do think that those tanks are going to come in handy. I absolutely do. In the far, far east, 11 time zones from Kaliningrad, in the Sakhalin province, the largest coal conveyor. Okay, so there's a coal mine. They got a conveyor belt that they put the ore on, and then the coal goes to processing, right? How long do you think the longest conveyor belt is? From the coal mine to the processor. What do you think is the longest that conveyor belt could possibly be? Any thoughts on 10 miles? Oh, geez, I got it in kilometers, pal. Let me think. Okay, so our bid is 10 miles or about 16 kilometers. 2 miles, that seems reasonable, doesn't it? Like 2 miles would be a long fucking way, right? Pretty much, Nightshade. It's 23 fucking kilometers long, this thing. 23 kilometers. That's like 15 miles. I was astonished to find that such a thing existed until I realized it was in the former Soviet Union, and then it made perfect sense. Ugh, these fucking guys. Anyway, this 23 kilometer long coal conveyor, the coal on it caught fire. The whole thing's on fire. 23 miles of moving fire. Well, it was moving. I doubt it's moving anymore. Now, we don't know why this happened. It's 11 time zones, 9,000 miles from Ukraine. Seems unlikely that it was an FPV drone, right? Like, that is not what happened. Could it have been partisan activity? It could have been. But no one has claimed responsibility. It's probably far more likely that it was merely Sergei smoking or a preventable industrial accident where in the world of Russian safety and compliance happens all the time. So we don't know why this actually happened. Now, I want to make a small correction here, because for those of you that follow the channel, you know we were talking about the coal industry in Russia being in trouble. Hey, Chris Carter. Hey, Pugga Mahone. We've been talking about the coal industry, and I miscited a statistic recently. I said 51 coal mines in Russia of the 174, so about a third, had already declared bankruptcy. That is inaccurate. 51 of them have closed their doors and gone into bankruptcy or are on the verge of that. And we expect that to happen. They're closing their doors. They're not making any money. In fact, they lost, I want to say, close to $20 billion in the last 2 quarters. All up as an industry, not just those 51 coal mines. So just a minor correction. There are 51 coal mines that are shuttered or on the verge. We know that it's coming. There's a new round of talks in Istanbul set for the 23rd and 24th. This is between Russia and Ukraine. The expectation is that Russia will maintain its outrageous, delusional, maximalist objectives, where it wants the government in Kyiv to be replaced by a Russian puppet regime, where it wants the Ukrainians to just peacefully withdraw from all of the illegally annexed territories and just hand them over to the Russians without firing a shot. This, of course, is nonsense. The Ukrainians, for their part, according to Zelensky, have very simple, attainable goals. They want to talk about the return of stolen Ukrainian children, which should be top of mind for everybody, not just the wealthy that can bribe the UAE to save their children. They want to talk about the repatriation of POWs, get the POWs home. And they want to schedule a meeting of leaders, Putin and Zelensky. Now, it seems that Putin is very reticent to meet with Zelensky, and with good cause. Zelensky's not going to put up with any of his shit. In fact, the last time that they were talking about meeting in Istanbul, when Zelensky called Putin's bluff and said, yeah, I'll go to Istanbul, I'll see you there, motherfucker. Putin apparently, diplomats made overtures to the Ukrainians for assurances that he would not become physically violent with the Russian president. They wanted assurances that Zelensky wouldn't reach over the table and throttle him right there. I think that's hysterical. Russian commander of the 7th Airborne, Alex Koznov, has died, apparently of a heart attack. He and the 7th Airborne are implicated in a series of war crimes in Zaporizhia and Kherson. Now, this could have been an internal Russian hit. It could have been an external Ukrainian hit. It could have been personal gangster politics inside of the Russian military. Or it could have just been a heart attack. We don't know. We just don't know. And I would not presume to guess. In Sumy, now I first reported this on Friday, right? But it's only today that the maps have been updated. That is all of the frontline maps out there, right? And it's important to watch them, more than one, because it's not until they all come into agreement that you feel like, okay, the fog of war has cleared here. Everybody now agrees, including the Russian side, right? So the maps were all updated today to show the liberation of Kindrativka. So now at Divka, Kindrativka, and 3 other settlements have all been reclaimed fully by the Ukrainian armed forces. And the Russians keep falling back. This is the Sumy advance. In Donetsk, now this is so important. I cannot stress to you the importance of this. In Donetsk, thanks, laddie. In Donetsk, hey, Alan Wolf. In Donetsk, we saw, really for the first time in a long, if ever, during this conflict, Ukrainian MiGs, in this case a MiG-29, operating with impunity. We keep talking about this evolving capability of the Ukrainian Air Force to establish air superiority over the battle space, a key rubric in combined arms warfare that the Ukrainians are working awfully hard to get to. Now, that question of air superiority, we've seen the Ukrainian Air Force operating with impunity along the southern front, right, along that Kherson front. We've seen them operating with impunity along the northern front, especially in Kursk and Tetkino. Now, it seems the Ukrainian armed forces are increasingly operating with impunity along the Donetsk front, the eastern line. That would be the whole front now, the whole 1,200 kilometers of front, coming under Ukrainian air superiority. Today, we saw a Ukrainian MiG-29 slam Russian positions in Donetsk, using what was likely an AASM hammer, in all likelihood, a French-provided AASM hammer. No, I apologize. No, it was not. I apologize. That's not what it was. It was a 500-pound JDAM. So, a U.S. supplied JDAM, 500 pounds. In that case, it was a hammer that took out the drone operator building in Kursk. Thanks, Dark Lord. Okay. Now, we often talk on this channel about dominoes to watch. Is there anybody here that would like to show off and mention some of the things that Azerbaijan has done lately to piss off Russia? And right, because if you follow the channel, we've had this conversation about the fact that Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, is ruled by a terrible dictator who is not a good guy, but who is standing up to Russia. Does anybody remember any of the shit that the Azeris have pulled to undermine Russia in the region? Anybody? No, Russia will not beat Ukraine. That's not the way that's going to happen. They have recently arrested a bunch of journalists from Sputnik, Azerbaijan, accusing them of espionage, which, they probably are guilty of. Withdrawn from Russia's version of NATO. Cheshire, I believe you're right. I believe that they were once in the CSTO, but they've been out of it for a while. So I believe that that's right. They sent mine-clearing equipment to Ukraine. God, I love you guys. Yeah, Dingleberry, we're having a different fucking conversation here. Maybe listen to this conversation because it might answer your question. They shelled Russian peacekeepers, Nagorno-Karabakh, right? Now, the brothers that were unalived. Okay, now let's hold that thought for a second. Okay. What are the things that Azerbaijan has been doing, right? And Dingleberry, pay attention here. Because Azerbaijan is a former USSR republic, right? They have been under the thumb of Moscow for 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. You wouldn't dare say shit about the Russians inside of Azerbaijan. So, that's my favorite, Dawn, right there. But that's the Kazakhs. It's the Kazakhs that have been doing that. So dig it. First, they took Nagorno-Karabakh. They went into a disputed territory with their neighbor. Russia was on the side of the neighbor. They took it. They unalived a bunch of Russian troops. Russia couldn't do shit. In fact, Russia pulled out of Armenia after that, emptied the Soviet military base that was there, took all the men and equipment, sent them to the front. They've arrested the journalists, right? Now, in terms of really undermining Russia's power in the region, the big deal was the pipeline to Kazakhstan. And this is so important because the Kazakhs have traditionally piped all of their natural gas and oil through Russia. So Russia makes transport fees on all Kazakhstani oil and gas that it exports. Not anymore. Turkey, and this is so important, Armenia, that they were just shooting at a year ago. Armenia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan have now agreed on a pipeline for piping all of Kazakhstan's oil and natural gas through Azerbaijan, Armenia to Turkey, which is what the Turks have wanted for a long time, is to get all that cheap oil so that they can refine it, sell it to Europe, take that pipeline gas and pipe it straight to Europe, picking up all the lost business that Russia has lost because nobody wants fucking Russian gas. And in fact, the EU just outlawed Russian pipeline natural gas. They still haven't gotten on board with LNG. That's a problem, I know, but at least the pipelines are no more. So this creates a cheap source of natural gas and oil for Europe to replace what it lost from Russia. And it takes Russia out of the equation, costing them something like $22 billion a year and undermining their power in the region. How else are they doing it? The Azeris have gone on the offensive and are arresting every former Wagnerite, every Azeri that went to Ukraine and fought for Wagner or the Russians is being arrested as a mercenary in violation of Azeri law and being locked up. All the men inside Azerbaijan that would pick up a rifle for money to fight for Russia is getting locked up. Now, the Russians are so pissed. Are you ready for this? They're blaming the Azeris for Operation Spiderweb. Russian media is today spinning a yarn that, of course, the Ukrainians couldn't have pulled off Operation Spiderweb on their own. So it must have been the traitorous, backstabbing, treasonous Azeris that did it. The Azeris, of course, are laughing at this, saying that it's ludicrous. And of course it is absolutely ludicrous. Dominoes to watch. Now, Dingleberry, who is so appropriately named, wants to understand how Russia can't win. How can Russia lose? Russia greatest ever. Only Russia winning. This is a lie that the Russians tell. Russia is done. They have burned through their entire Soviet stockpile of weapons. It's all gone. The Ukrainians are targeting the logistics, cutting off the balls of the Russians. You can't fight a war without bullets. You can't fight a war without water. You can't fight a war where your soldiers on the front line only get water, fresh water, twice a week, and the rest of the time they're forced to drink from filthy puddles, which has caused outbreaks of cholera. Cholera in the 21st century. Insanity. It's absolute insanity. Did they try to blame the Brits for Spiderweb? Hysterical. They cannot face the truth. That's another reason, Dingleberry, they're going to lose, is because they cannot face reality. They live in this delusional world where Russia is untouchable, Russia is unbeatable. Everything the great leader, dear leader says is right and true, and all else is treason. That right there is a recipe for disaster. And the hardest part of learning that lesson is watching my own fellow Americans fall for it with Donald fucking Trump. Okay, now Dom. Dom makes a great point. The Russians never apologized for shooting down that Azeri airliner. Apologize? Fuck Dom. They haven't even taken responsibility. When clearly they did. Now, in terms of inciting incidences that are driving a wedge between Moscow and Baku, the shooting down of that Azeri civilian flight was certainly a big deal. Huge motivator for Azerbaijan to move away from Moscow. Another one, someone else mentioned, was the murder. Well, they beat them to death. A couple of brothers who were in police custody in Yekaterinburg, Azeri nationals who were arrested in Yekaterinburg, Russia, and then the police just, beat them to death. That certainly drove a wedge between the Azeris and Moscow. MH19. I think you're thinking of the Malaysian airliner, which I think was MH17, but I'm not sure. Can anybody give me a check on that? That Malaysian airliner, which I think had over 100 Dutch folks on it, there were a lot of Dutch people on that plane, was shot down, I want to say in 2015, around there, by Igor Girkin, or as some people may know him by his pseudonym Strelkov, who was one of MH70. Thank you, Mr. Metalman. MH70, Malaysian Airliners 70. That was shot down by Igor Girkin, also known as Strelkov, who's currently sitting in a Russian jail. He was the man who, now Sean Stack is saying it's MH17. That's what I thought it was. Was it 17 or 70? Are we doing this from memory or are we looking it up? Dave says MH17 2014. Thank you, everybody. Okay, now. So that was a totally separate incident. Igor Girkin, though, it's worth mentioning. He was the architect of the Donbass War. And he was a very effective military strategist for Putin, a cheerleader, and not just a cheerleader, an executioner on the battlefield in the Donbass for 10 years. And because he was competent and because he got things done, he became a threat to Putin. And so Putin had him locked up, because that's what Putin has done with everybody that's competent. He has had them disappeared, dispatched, or detained. You can't run a culture that way. There is an agricultural, so we talked about the crisis in the coal industry. There's now an agricultural crisis. There is drought across 10 regions of Russia. That's the breadbasket of Russia. And wheat yields in Rostov are down 60% in drought-stricken Rostov, for example. 60%. Increased fuel prices and rising costs of fertilizer and other materials for farmers. We're looking at one of the worst crop yields in Russia in decades. And there's already a shortage of potatoes, right? Putin asked Lukashenko for more potatoes, and Lukashenko said, we don't have them to send you. 11.5% of all Russian companies are planning on layoffs in the next quarter. So that shortage of labor that Russia's been experiencing, it appears that that's about to come to an end. There's going to be a lot of people without jobs real soon. Thinking of starting a business in Russia selling lockable windows. Windows that just do not open and are unbreakable. You're right, Pingu. We got 20% of the banks on the verge of collapse. That is going to be a problem. Now, as I have regularly said, it is my opinion that without dramatic action, like seizing oligarch wealth, seizing the money in the banks and deposit accounts, other artificial market manipulations of the currency, interest rates, etc. Without something dramatic, I don't see how Russia can survive the budget reconciliation of December. In fact, one of the things that I think is one of the dominoes that's going to cause that to start to crash is that Russia has suspended tax payments for corporations. So normally, as a corporation, you file your taxes every 3 months or whatever, and you make your payments so you don't have a big bill at the end of the year. Russia has suspended those payments, so companies don't have to make those payments. It all comes due in December. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that is the biggest red flag that tells me that December is going to be a tough month for the Russians. Okay, so big thanks to Scully and Mulder from Down Under, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. I assume there's a Mulder. There's always a Mulder when there's a Scully. So thank you, Scully. And big thanks to the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Travis, Feisty, Maddie, Pete, and Jay. Is that everybody? Did I get everybody? I feel like I missed somebody. I hope that's everybody. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, and of course to our dear friend Nightshade, who if you don't follow, you should give him a follow. Okay, so questions, comments, points of observation, anything from anybody. Holy shit, 135,000 likes. Oh, God, you guys are great. 35,000 of them are Lars. Lars is going to have carpal tunnel syndrome because of me. It's ridiculous. Well, give yourself a break, Lola. You deserve it. Rockets being sent from Canada. Yay. Thank you, Canada. Thanks, Mike. I'm going to try to be better about that. I really am, man. Van, the man. Please, Anthony, Tommy, Tom, you and I both know that's the most exercise you got today. There was something I saw. I was going to mention to you guys. What the hell was it? Oh, yeah, Ukraine just won $6.37 billion in lawsuits through the arbitration court in The Hague and the Swiss arbitration court. Matthew, I don't think the Russian people are starving quite yet. Some of them are. If you do a Google search for old people picking through McDonald's garbage in Moscow, you will see some really frightening stories of what life is like for a pensioner in Moscow after Putin just cut their pension by 35%. And inflation is 10%. So now look, so what happened was way back when in 2014, when Russia seized Crimea, they seized all the assets of the Ukrainian national gas business, Naftagaz. Those assets and equipment were worth about $7 billion altogether. And I'm not sure for what reasons, but 2 separate lawsuits had to be filed, one in Switzerland and one in The Hague. The Hague, through the French courts, it went through the French courts to The Hague, and in The Hague, the arbiters granted Ukraine $5 billion in restitution, and through the Swiss courts, the Swiss arbitration process, they granted $1.37 billion. So Ukraine is looking to grab that shit. Now we will see whether or not they can ever get it, but they have one in court. Other questions, comments, anything from anybody about anything? Guys, listen, June joined the Patreon at the Sea Babies level. Now, when you join, as did our buddy Thomas Weber this week, who upgraded to Sea Babies. Now, when you're a Sea Baby, you get a video sponsorship every month. And usually after the 15th of the month, if somebody joins, I wait until the next month to do it. But right now, for a limited time only, if you join the Patreon at the Sea Babies level or higher, you will get a video sponsorship this month. So I did Thomas Weber Jr.'s today, and I'll do June's tomorrow. Also, if anybody joins at just the $5 level and you pay for the year up front, you'll get a live sponsorship. That I'll do that for anybody that joins and pays for the year up front. Live sponsorships all around. And Scully was the sponsor tonight. I have no other sponsors this week. So if anybody can see their way clear to sponsor live, the PayPal is in the description. Do you think the front will collapse for Russia? I do. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think it's unlikely to happen this summer. But when it gets cold, and maybe some of those weapons that the U.S. is promising get here, and Ukrainian aviation can use them to pummel the front fucking line, I think it's coming. I don't think it's going to be 6 months. Well, wait, what month is this? Yeah, 6 months. January. I hope so. Now, of course, I'm always wrong. And the experts in Lithuania are sure that Putin can keep fighting for 3 more years. Right? That's according to Lithuanian intelligence. Most of the consensus from the experts is that Putin can fight this war well into 2026 at least. So we'll see. Hey, Alan. Well, the good news is I'm posting lives back on YouTube again. So everything you missed tonight, a couple hours, you ought to be able to check it out on YouTube. Yeah, they're keeping that front line warm all right. That's the worry designology, isn't it? Is not that the Russians won't collapse, because of course the Russians will collapse. Woohoo! But rather, can the Ukrainians hang on till it happens? That is the big fear. And when I say things like that, sometimes some trolls say, well, wait a minute, if the Ukrainians can't hold on that long, then Russia will win. Fucking, it doesn't matter. The Ukrainian front lines could collapse right now. Russia could sweep into Kyiv, right? Shoot me in the head in the street. Wouldn't change anything. Russia's still going to collapse. It's too late. It's too late. There's no saving it. And that's what worries me, is that the world is too worried about preserving Russia rather than getting ready for its dissolution. The writing is on the wall. Russia has no future. We're all going to live to see 500 years of Russian history come collapsing to its end. We're going to live in a world where people don't want people to know they were Russian, where nobody speaks Russian. It's over. We're watching the death of the last empire. So whatever happens on the front line happens, but there's no turning it around for Russia. This is the end. Okay, guys. Night, Nana Pam. No way. 177,000 likes. Wow. Is that a record? What's the record? Isn't it 179? I think it's 179. Well, anyway. All right, let's get to 180 here. I'll start tapping too. Let's get to 180 so we beat the record. 180, there we go. Thanks, Designology. Where do you click the like button on the live? You mean the like button? You just tap the screen. Ooh, what happened there? Why did that suddenly... Did I turn on some effect or something? All right, well, it doesn't matter. It's over. Thanks, laddie. All right. Yeah, I don't know what I did there. Why that's like... Okay. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Sede sapientiae ora pro nobis. All right, kids. Make it a great day. I'll talk to you soon. This is the voice of the Met.